achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down not one, but two main cards. First, for the upcoming UFC Fight Night 80, which will take place on Thursday, December 10th. Then I'll give you the four main card predictions for the Ultimate Fighter 22 finale, which will take place on Friday, December 11th. I'm only giving you main card predictions that are for the fights that are already posted, and I'll talk about that momentarily. And then I'll do a brand new show for the Saturday night UFC 194 event. So that's 3 shows in 3 days. All of the preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net with one caveat. Again, with the Ultimate Fighter finale, seeing as that there's a ton of fights, I'm only going to break down, I think there's only 7 fights that I'm going to break down on that card. The 4 main card fights that are already posted, so involving none of the TUF fighters. And there's 3 preliminary fights. We're still waiting to see if Tetsuya Kawajiri is going to get an opponent. I'll break that one down as well if he does get a fighter for that card. Either way, I'm thinking the way they're waiting, it could be a matchup involving someone from the Ultimate Fighter. They might giving them an opportunity to step up and fight, and they're just holding off. Either way, I'll be breaking all that down on my website. The bet packs will be available, $10 for individual bet packs, or at this point in time, there's 4 cards left in December. You can buy all 4 for $30. I'm coming off a pretty damn pathetic showing at UFC Fight Night 79 in South Korea. I went 3-8 overall. I lost 5 split decisions. Still, it really sucked. It was a really, it was a hard one for me to watch because it was an entertaining card. It just didn't go my way. Let's leave it at that. Either way, the prediction panel will have all their predictions. The public picks are posted and available for UFC 194. It's going to be a fantastically busy next couple of days, so make sure you check in my website as much as possible as I post and try to keep up with all the flurries of action. Let's get to that first main card prediction. The first main card prediction for UFC Fight Night 80 will take place in the UFC's middleweight division as Ultimate Fighter Nation's winner, Elias the Spartan Theodorou, undefeated at 11-0, takes on Thiago Santos of Brazil with a record of 11 wins and 3 losses. Now, Elias, as I said, he's still undefeated, including 3 straight wins in the UFC. Santos comes in shockingly enough. This is the 6th fight inside the octagon. He currently has a record of 3 wins and 2 losses. Elias is 1 inch taller, Santos will have a 1 inch reach advantage, and the Canadian is 4 years younger. Now, Elias, when he fights, he tries to blend together his wrestling and his kickboxing. He has 5 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and a quartet of fights to go the distance in which he won. For Santos, 7 wins by knockout, 5 first-round stoppages. He's 1-1 fights ending by submission, and he's 3-1 on the scorecards. Now, both guys have a lot of knockouts, but they're different types of knockouts. With Santos, he's a big strike capability guy, and we've seen that with his leg kicks. We'll talk about that momentarily. Theodorou, he uses pressure and volume to overwhelm and break opponents down. For Elias, what we've seen from him, he likes to strike and try and close the distance. In his last fight, when he fought Roger Narvaez, he had a little bit of issue with the range, fighting at range. He was throwing a lot of single strikes, a lot of strikes that were coming up short or just not even a chance of hitting, and he was trying to find his range, and he was really struggling. Look for him to use his lead hand a lot to try and measure the distance, kind of keep in his opponent's base and take away that initial strike. He throws a big overhand right, will mix in a left hook, and he likes to throw a lead leg kick to the body, and sometimes he'll go upstairs with it. He does have a tendency to telegraph his strikes a little bit, and it certainly in his last fight it was costing him in that first round. He also tends to duck his head a little bit too much, which if he does that too frequently and does the same thing, it can be timed, it can be countered. When he comes forward, he likes to bull his way in. There's not a lot of finesse, not a lot of style points when he's doing it. It's kind of clunky when he does, look to attack in that manner. For Thiago Santos, he is a far better kicker than he is a boxer. Look for him to land brutal inside leg kicks. He'll throw a back leg high kick, which can be absolutely devastating. He sets everything up with a quick kick to the body as well. And when we took out Hani Marks, he landed a brutal body kick right off the bat and stopped him. Really stepped into it. He throws some very hard low kicks. And the one thing I really like about what Santos does, he uses kicks to set up other kicks. He will go low, and then when fighters start to pay attention to his low kicks, he will try and target the body. He'll go to the body. When they start paying attention there, he will go up top. So he sets one kick up with another. It's a very nice technique. He's up on the balls with his feet when he strikes. He uses a lot of lateral movement. Throws it a right jab when he can. I saw this really nice. Who was his last fight? I can't remember which fight it was in. Maybe it was against Andy Enns. He threw a big right jab and then immediately switched his hips and threw a head kick with the left side. It was very impressive. It's really hard to defend against because you're not anticipating it. He does have a tendency to flail, with flurries when he's striking with his hands. Loses a lot of his technical edge when he gets under pressure. And that's something Theodorou's going to want to capitalize on and keep him backing up. For Elias, his best pathway to victory here is to get him in the clinch, be aggressive, break him down, and drag him to the mat and really beat on him that way. For Santos, keep him at range, use his kicking attack and movement. And Elias, he struggles to close the gap, and I think he's going to get a little bit desperate here. He's going to walk into something, he's going to get countered. And my prediction is Thiago Santos to defeat Elias Theodorou. I'll take Santos by TKO. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's lightweight division, and one of the new UFC phenomenons, Super Sage Northcutt, undefeated at 6-0, takes on the Fist. Cody Pfister with a record of 12 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Now, this is certainly a showcase fight for Northcutt. At the same time, they're trying to bring him along slowly and not overwhelm him with top-level competition. Pfister is a nice step in the right direction after that. And for Pfister, he's coming off his first UFC win. It took him 2 tries, which is impressive. Northcutt beating Francisco Trevino in his UFC debut. For Northcutt, he has 4 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. Only 1 time he's gone outside the first round, and he ended it in the second round. He's a third-degree Taekwondo black belt, karate black belt, BJJ purple belt. He is undefeated 15-0 in kickboxing. The man has a massive set of combat credentials. For Pfister, he comes from a wrestling background. 4 wins by knockout, 3 submission wins. He's got 5 decision wins on his record, only 1 decision loss, and he's also been submitted 3 times, which included to James Mutasari in his debut. Physically, Northcutt is 2 inches taller. Pfister will have a surprising 2-inch reach advantage, and Northcutt is 6 years younger. He's exceptional. I think he's the 3rd youngest man to ever step inside the octagon, which is pretty impressive. For Northcutt, he's an exceptionally dangerous striker. A lot of flashy techniques, but effective techniques. Strikes that most fighters in MMA haven't dealt with, which makes it difficult to defend against and difficult to anticipate what he's going to throw. He does a good job of combining with his wrestling. A lot of people especially point at, how's he going to do with the wrestling? He's got pretty good takedowns, and again, Pfister will be a nice test for that because he's a pretty good wrestler in his own right. Look for Northcutt to throw a lot of front leg kicking techniques. He manages distance exceptionally well. Excellent footwork. He switches up stances. He just moves exceptionally well. When he fought Trevino slipped, and Northcutt pounced on him and just started smashing him with quick, accurate strikes, and eventually brought in the end. He landed a massive takedown, continued to batter him on the mat, and forced the referee to step in, maybe a little bit early. Nonetheless, he went for it. For Pfister, he's incredibly durable. He's also very aggressive. He's developing his striking. It's still probably the weakest part of his overall game. He'll throw a left jab and a straight right combination, and he will try and throw a lot of head feints and stuff to try and fake his way into closer range to set up his wrestling. What I don't like is he tends to leave his head up when he's attacking and under attack. He raises his chin up when he's striking, and even though he's never been knocked out, that's certainly a gateway to getting smashed. And when he fought Yosdeni Cedeno, he was getting clipped, especially in that first round before Cedeno started to slow down. He was getting absolutely smashed. Not absolutely smashed, but he was getting hit as he came forward. That shows how durable the guy is. For him to be successful, for Pfister to be successful in this matchup, he must make it a dogfight. Get on the inside, get a hold of Northcutt, grind him into the cage, put him on his back, and really drag this fight into the second half. Pfister, for the most part, he beat Cedeno in a similar situation where Cedeno started to slow down. And we have to see the same thing here. Make Northcutt fight a long fight, put doubt in his mind that if he can't score the early stoppage, how is he going to beat this guy? For Northcutt, I think his wrestling is going to be good enough to defend against Pfister if he gets inside, and his distance management is going to make it that much tougher for Pfister to actually close the distance to set up his wrestling. Pfister's durable, but he leaves his chin open way too much. I think it gets exposed here, and I think Northcutt hits him with something significant, and my prediction is Sage Northcutt to defeat Cody Pfister by knockout. A submission's possible, but look for the knockout. We move now to the co-main event of the evening, and including the Santos Theodorou fight. Between the next 3 cards, we have a ton of really difficult fights to predict, and this is one of those fights. It's in the UFC's lightweight division, as the 14th ranked Jim Miller, 25 wins, 6 losses, and 1 no contest, takes on Ultimate Fighter winner Michael Maverick Chiesa with a record of 12 wins and 2 defeats. This is kind of the new versus the old. Chiesa is trying to crack his way into the top 15. Miller has been out of it. He's just slightly got back into it, and he's trying to hold on and move up. He's been a long-time title contender, never actually got the opportunity to fight for the title, but he's been right there. Miller, 13 wins by submission, 3-1 in fights ended by knockout, and 9-4 when going the distance. He was submitted by Nate Diaz, but he's a BJ black belt, incredibly talented grappler, Taekwondo black belt, and NCAA Division I wrestler, so very good credentials coming into mixed martial arts. For Chiesa, 8 wins by submission, He's 4-0 when going the distance and 0-1 in fights ended by knockout. He was submitted by Jorge Masvidal, who we just saw lose a split decision to Benson Henderson, and Chiesa's a BJJ purple belt. Physically, Chiesa 5 inches taller, will have a 4-inch reach advantage, and he is also 4 years younger. Now, both guys are very aggressive, grappling-based fighters. Chiesa has 5 wins by rear naked choke. That seems to be his submission of preference. For Miller, he has a much bigger variety. He will go for chokes, rear naked chokes, guillotines. He caught Charles Oliveira, a very tricky grappler in his own right, with a knee bar. He also submitted BJJ black belt from Fabricio Camoes, with a leg lock. So Miller's very good. Miller is very opportunistic. He will take what is given to him and work with it and look for the submission. Chiesa seems very focused on moving to back mount and setting up his rear naked choke or submissions from that position. He might transition to an armbar, but that seems to be his focus. Look for Michael Chiesa to do a lot of work from the clinch. Establish body control. He has some nice trips from that position. Wears on guys and looks to drag him to the mat. Once on the mat, he likes to chain submissions together. He's got I talked about an excellent back mount. And when he fought Francisco Trinaldo, when he got on top of Trinaldo, it was like a building on top of the Brazilian. There was no way Chiesa was getting bucked off. He controlled that. He dropped big ground and pound, and he simply wore his opponent out. He has improved his striking. Arguably one of his best techniques, though, is his clinch game, where he uses a clinch and knee strikes. Look for him to throw a nice left cross as well. Not a lot of variety when he's punching, when he's striking, and he struggled with the pressure of Joe Lozon, who was coming at him, and it didn't seem like Chiesa had a lot of weapons to really deal with that. For Jim Miller, the first thing I kind of look at him, where he's come up short in fights, he tends to give up position a lot when he's going for submissions, and it puts him on his back. He has a very active guard when put on his back, but still he's in a bad position if he can't submit his opponent. Look for him to use the rubber guard as much as possible to control the posture of his opponent, of Chiesa, if that position does present itself. Again, so Miller will attack with a variety of submissions. We've seen him attack with a Kimura, transition to triangle. He keeps going. But keep in mind, when he fought Pat Healy, he got worn down in the grappling exchanges from grappling with a bigger, stronger man. And that could be... Chiesa's a pretty big man in his own right. Maybe not as big as Pat Healy, but still he's a pretty big dude. Again, with Miller, when he was on the feet, he was getting caught in the tie plum a lot against Beneil Dariush, controlled in the clinch position and giving up takedowns from that position, and that really plays into Chiesa's strong suits. Again, Miller's very good off his back. He will go for submissions again, but it can cost him. When he fought Dariush, he struggled to create distance, was getting put on his back routinely. His striking could be his best bet here, but can he keep it at distance long enough against a longer, leaner fighter to have success? I expect to see Miller going for submissions, giving up position way too often for those low percentage opportunities. If he doesn't hit a sub, Chiesa is going to get on top, and he's not going to give up those opportunities, much like Beneil Dariush did. And I look for Chiesa to have a lot of success in the clinch, drag Miller to the mat for that position once he initiates the tie-up. And my prediction is Michael Chiesa to pull off what I'm expecting to be a little bit of an upset and defeat Jim Miller by decision. We move now to the main event of UFC Fight Night 80, and this fight is going to be fantastic. It's in the UFC's strawweight division and women's strawweight division, and I will tell you flat out, I am still not 100% sure as I'm talking right now who I'm going to go with, and I will decide once I get to the end of the show. We have the number 3 ranked Rose Thug Namajunas with a record of 4 wins and 2 losses, taking on 12 gauge Paige VanZant, currently ranked 7th in the division. She carries a record of 6 wins and 1 defeat. Now, originally this fight was scheduled to be VanZant against Jojo Calderwood. Calderwood backed out. Rose stepped up and took her opportunity. I think she's got about a month to prepare, a little over a month to prepare, it feels like, and that should be plenty of time. This is a huge fight for both girls. For Paige, she wants her shot at the title. The UFC is certainly grooming her for that opportunity, and she knows a win here will keep her rising for a future shot again for the title belt. For Rose, she's already had one opportunity. She earned it through winning that tournament. She's a marketable fighter. She's got a good reputation, and I see her, also rebuilding towards a future title shot if she can continue to pick up victories, including this fight. Both girls are exceptionally early in their career. Paige is just 7 fights into her pro career. Rose only has 5 pro fights, but keep in mind she had 3 fights in the Ultimate Fighter against top-level competition, including the aforementioned JoJo and Randa Marcos, beating and submitting both of them. For Paige, she's a BJJ blue belt. She trains with a Team Alpha Male. For Rose, Taekwondo black belt, Karate black belt, BJJ purple belt. So both girls know, good combat backgrounds. For Rose, 1 inch taller. They have the same reach. Paige is 2 years younger. Now, as far as looking at win totals, Rose has 3 wins by submission as a pro, 2 of them by rear naked choke, 1 by armbar. Plus, she picked up 3 wins on the Ultimate Fighter, 2 by Kimura, and 1 by rear naked choke. Of her combined 6 wins between the Ultimate Fighter and the UFC, or her pro career, 5 4 of them have come in the first round. She has one win and 2 losses in fights that go into the third round, so keep that in mind. For Paige, 1 win by knockout, 2 submission wins, and she's 3-1 when going the distance. Her only loss came via decision in her third pro bout against Tecia Torres, which also was the third pro bout of Rose Namajunas, and Rose lost that fight as well, losing to Tecia Torres by decision. Looking at Rose first, she's an absolute killer with a savvy submission game and lightning quick. Her ability to get in positions and set up submissions is really difficult to anticipate and defend against. Look for against Angela Hill, she got to her back so quick during a scramble, locked in that rear naked choke, and put her lights out, which was damn impressive. If she does get put on her back, she's very active from that position. She doesn't want to be there, especially we saw that against Carla Esparza. It's not a position you want to be there for prolonged periods of time. We could see that tested against Paige VanZant. But, she will fight from their position. At the same time, she does tend to lose a little bit of steam, and slow down. That cost her against Carla. And we ultimately saw her pulling guard, trying to get in a position to use her submission game. In that fight by the third round, she was certainly exhausted. Look for her on the feet to punch and clinch, try to establish body control. She throws a lot of unorthodox striking techniques, jumping front kicks. She's a well-rounded, very aggressive fighter. Throws a nice right hook strike. We saw it against Hill. She was throwing some nice combinations, changes angles a lot, long left jab, left hook as well. She'll mix those together. Now looking at Paige, she's exceptionally relentless. She keeps a torrid pace. She keeps pushing forward. She keeps working. She's hard to deal with in the clinch, looks to overwhelm and exhaust her opponents, and she's had a lot of success with that style. In the clinch, she will throw knees, elbows, punches. She will work takedowns in. Now keep in mind, she was eating some pretty big shots when both striking and working in the clinch against Felice Herrig. She likes this technique, and I'm not a huge fan of it, that headlock takedown, which, if executed properly, is beautiful and wonderful. If not, it can result in her losing position, and Felice was having a lot of success countering. She got her back a couple of times and really had success there. We saw another attempt by Paige in her flurry of activity to try and take her back, and she ultimately got her back taken. She got out of it quickly, and that's one thing. She keeps working and gets out of positions quickly, but again, it's difficult to see, when you see a fighter constantly getting put in bad positions. Look for her to throw body lock takedowns, try and flip her opponent's legs to the side when she's in top position trying to get in, and just keep chipping away with strikes. Now, when you look at this fight, there are 2 schools of thought. We look at Rose. She might not do well in long fights. Carla Esparza broke her down, and you have Paige VanZant, who's exceptionally aggressive, very relentless with her pace, can go for, we've seen her go for 3 rounds. Can she go for 5? A lot of people assume, and I think she can as well. And everybody's expecting her to break down Rose. The other scenario, though, is that Paige routinely gives up position and puts herself in bad positions. We saw it against Felice Herrig. We saw it against Kaylin Curran. She was getting her back taken. She was getting put on the mat. And that's something against Rose you cannot afford. Rose is not the type of fighter you want to give positions to, because she only needs one, and she will slap on a submission. Paige doesn't have the wrestling game of Carla Esparza. Keep that in mind. Rose is very good in the clinch as well. Her opportunistic submission games are going to be a massive threat. I don't think she's going to get nearly as exhausted if she gets some superior positions and holds on to them against Paige, especially if with her long legs, she gets that body lock hooked up. I think Rose weathers the early storm, jumps on that first mistake Paige makes, and my prediction, I've gone back and forth on this, but my prediction is Rose Namajunas to defeat Paige VanZant by submission. All right, we move now to what will be a 4-fight main card for the Ultimate Fighter 22 finale. I'm only going to break down the 4 fights that are posted right now, excluding the TUF fights. I simply need to find some way to make room with all the fights in 3 days. We're going to open it up in the UFC's welterweight division as 17-6-0 Mike Pierce, returning to action, takes on 11-1, recently defeated for the first time, Ryan LaFleur. Now, Pierce has said he's returning from a huge layoff. He had a torn MCL and ankle ligaments from his fight with Rousimar Palhares. He broke his hand in 2014 in a fight he was supposed to fight Damian Maia and had to pull out. He's been out over 25 months. That's a long time. For Ryan LaFleur, he's coming up the first loss of his career, a decision to that same Damian Maia, and we'll talk about that scenario eventually. Physically, 5-inch height advantage for LaFleur, 4-inch reach advantage. He's also 3 years younger. LaFleur is a BJJ purple belt, collegiate wrestling background, 4 wins by knockout, 3 submission victories, 4 decision victories. All 4 of those decision victories coming inside the UFC's octagon. For Pierce, 2-time All-American wrestler, 8-0 in fights ended by knockout, 1-1 in fights ended by submission. He has an 8-5 record when going the distance. He's had 3 split decisions in his career, including tough, very nail-biting, close losses to Johnny Hendricks and a Josh Koscheck, who was relevant when this fight happened. And he also lost a close decision against John Fitch, who earlier in his career, another time when John Fitch was right at the top of his game. This, for a lot of it, could be a battle of wrestlers, and it could turn into a striking-based battle, if that is the possibility. I don't think it's going to play out exactly like that. Looking at LaFleur first, he's averaged 3.35 takedowns at a 59% completion rate, 54% takedown defense. Compared to Mike Pierce, 3.36 takedowns at a 44% completion rate, so very similar numbers. Big difference though, 70% takedown defense. So he stopped almost 20% more takedowns than what LaFleur has been able to do. When you look at Mike Pierce, John Fitch scored 4 takedowns in that fight, and Koscheck scored 2. No one else in his UFC career has been able to take him down more than 1 time. When you look at Ryan LaFleur, Damian Maia dominated him on the mat, taking him down 5 times. Court McGee put him on his back 4 times. Even John Howard took him down once, and LaFleur was supposed to have a pretty wide grappling advantage in that matchup. For LaFleur, he couldn't stay off his back against Maia. It wore him down. He was exhausted. And even though Maia was exceptionally tired in the latter half of that matchup, he was still getting the takedowns. Pierce is a grinder. He has very good cardio. He scores takedowns. He beats opponents up in the clinch. And he has power in his hands. For the most part, LaFleur, his striking has been mainly used to set up his grappling, close the distance, clinch, or set up, opportunity to shoot for a takedown. I think he's going to struggle to take Pierce off his feet. He's going to struggle to he's going to struggle with Mike Pierce's pace and aggression. The layoff and injuries are a major concern for Pierce. I'm not denying that. And for a positive scenario for LaFleur, he's coming off that first loss of his career, and it tends to make fighters better. So those scenarios certainly suggest Ryan LaFleur would have the advantage here. But if Pierce is, I think he gets back in there. He does what he does best. He should have the skill advantage to both shut down LaFleur's offensive opportunities and to exploit the holes in his defense. I think Pierce wears him down in the clinch. He lands takedowns. He gets stronger as the fight goes as LaFleur fades. He has some success with the striking. And my prediction is Mike Pierce to defeat Ryan LaFleur by decision. Fight number 2 on this main card is a matchup in the UFC's lightweight division, and it's a battle between 2 fighters you wonder how they have not already fought. As 25-10-0 Joe Lauzon takes on 16-6 Evan Dunham in another matchup that I had a lot of trouble. I saw points for both men winning this matchup. These are longtime lightweight vets, both very exciting fighters. They both are coming out of slumps. Dunham had lost 3 straight. Lauzon had lost 3 of his last 4. Both were slipping in relevance. Since then, and you look at Dunham, though, in that stretch, he lost to the current champion, Rafael dos Anjos, lost to the current title challenger, Donald Cerrone, and Edson Barboza, a top fighter as well. For Lauzon, he lost to the former champion, Anthony Pettis, top rising contender Michael Johnson, and TUF veteran Jim Miller. Now both guys are getting back going. Lauzon's won 3 of his last 4. Dunham's won 2 in a row. They're kind of gaining significance again. This is a big fight for both of these guys and their future, as their futures are concerned. Physically, same height, 1-inch reach advantage for Lauzon. He's also 3 years younger. Now for Joe, he's a BJJ brown belt, 18 wins by submission. He does have 3 submission losses. He's 6-4 in fights ended by knockout, and he's 1-3 when going the distance. In his last 8 fights to go outside the first round, he's only won 3 of them. Keep that stat in mind. For Dunham, BJJ black belt, 6-1 in fights ended by submission, 3-2 in fights ended by knockout, 5-3 on the scorecards. For Dunham, in his last 12 fights to go to the first round, he is 8-4. So very contrasting records there at the end. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you here in a moment, so try and stick with me. For Lauzon, he's averaged 2.59 takedowns at a 43% completion rate. Those are decent middle-of-the-road wrestling numbers. 58% takedown defense. For Dunham, 1.9 takedowns at a 34% completion rate. He's the type of guy, when he gets you down, he sticks on top of you for prolonged periods of time. But this is the big number that stands out to me. Dunham has defended 78% of his opponent's attempts to take him down. That is big. Additionally, when striking, Dunham averages 5.11 strikes landed per minute compared to Lauzon at 2.5. More than twice as many strikes Dunham lands per minute. Also, Lauzon gets hit 1.3 strikes more per minute. So Dunham's got the offensive and defensive advantages there. Continuing with the numbers, Lauzon 0-5 in his last 5 matchups where he does not land a single takedown. Dunham has given up a grand total of 3 takedowns in his last 7 fights. 2 of them came against Elias who needed 9 attempts to take him down, and 1 came against Donald Cerrone. For Lauzon, he is 2-4 when his opponents eclipse 50 significant strikes. And in those 2 wins, he had to land 5 takedowns to get them. For Dunham, he has gone over 50 strikes in 7 of his last 11 fights. Again, more numbers, keep coming with me. Against Rodrigo Dam, he landed 152. Against TJ Grant, he landed 160. Against Gleison Tebow, he landed 91. Those are some big, lofty numbers that I don't think Joe Lauzon can keep up with. For Lauzon, he has struggled tremendously with active strikers. Against Michael Johnson, against Ali Aquinta, he got overwhelmed by Jim Miller early on in that matchup. He tends to shell up under pressure, try and wait out the barrage, and Dunham's going to feast on this because he's just going to keep coming and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Lauzon's very aggressive. He needs to capitalize on Dunham, who tends to be a little bit of a slow starter. Look for that early submission. For Dunham, he beat Tebow by weathering the early storm and grinding him down. I really like the way Dunham likes to step into the pocket, swing, move off the center when attacking. I think he has a superior striking offense and defense. He's got the better defensive wrestling. He's got the better cardio. Dunham defends the early action from Lauzon, takes over in rounds 2 and 3 with striking volume and a grinding grappling game after Lauzon gets tired. I said Lauzon is 1 and 3 in decisions, which shows up. And my prediction is Evan Dunham to defeat Joe Lauzon by decision. We move now to what I assume is going to be the Ultimate Fighter 22 finale co-main event in the UFC's lightweight division as Edson Barboza, 16-3-0, takes an Ultimate Fighter winner, 19-3-0, Tony Ferguson. Now, this fight was originally booked as the long-awaited return of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Unfortunately, it did not. Khabib Nurmagomedov. It did not happen, and Barboza stepping in approximately 1 month to prepare for this matchup. Ferguson, he's really coming into his own right now. He's on the strength of 6 consecutive wins against escalating competition, submitting Gleison Tibau, and then beating up Josh Thompson en route to a decision victory. For Barboza, he's turned it around after a couple steps back. He's won 3 of his last 4. He lost to Michael Johnson in an unfortunate bout, but he beat Bobby Green and he beat Paul Felder in 2 strong efforts in his last 2 appearances. His last 2 victories. For Barboza, we know he has nasty Muay Thai. He's also a black belt in Taekwondo, which really shows up in his kicking game. BJJ purple belt. He has 9 wins by knockout. He's 5-1 when going the distance. Now, he has lost once by knockout to Jamie Varner, lost once by submission to Donald Cerrone, and he was also beaten on the scorecards by the aforementioned Michael Johnson. For Ferguson, BJJ brown belt, collegiate wrestling background, 9 wins by knockout. The guy's got dynamite in his hands. 6-1 record in fights ending by submission, and he is 4-2 on the scorecards. When you look at Edson Barboza, he's a fantastic and devastating striker, but there are some issues. He struggles with pressure, and his striking defense is a little bit suspect for a fighter who is such a top-level striker. He gives up 3.28 strikes absorbed per minute, which is a pretty high number. His chin's a bit of a question mark. We saw Donald Cerrone hurt him with a jab, in which Barboza claimed he blinked, and that's why he dropped. We also saw Jamie Varner crack him with some big shots and eventually knock him out. Barboza, what he does well, he has those fight-changing leg kicks. If he lands one of those, it can really turn a fight on its head quickly and really take a lot of the spring out of his opponent's step. Throws a nice turning side kick. Body kicks as well, where he digs the toes, and we saw him stop Evan Dunham with that. Very good right hand as well. He's very quick overall. A lot of those hook kicks and wheel kicks, just a high-intensity, highly capable striker. One thing with him, though, again, he struggles with pressure, and some of these techniques are very difficult to get off when he's going backwards. When he fought Michael Johnson, he was getting cracked several times. He was backing up, struggling with the pressure boxing, and his cardio and output were faltering in that matchup, and he was taking some damage. Looking at Tony Ferguson, he moves forward exceptionally well, throws a lot of feints and fakes, switches up his stance, uses a lot of head movement and footwork, varies his speed very well, and I think that's something Varner had success with against Barboza, and so did Ross Pearson, if you remember that fight. We see Ferguson, it looks like he's coming in slow, and then boom, boom, he really comes with a quick, he slows down, speeds up, and it makes it very difficult to time and anticipate what he's going to do. Ferguson gets good extension on his strikes, he maintains his pace very well, he handles the range exceptionally well, and he slips in and out and does damage and avoids taking damage. Look for him to come forward with a push kick to the midsection. He hurt Josh Thompson with an elbow. He throws a lot of variety. He throws a lot of interesting strikes, mixes things up very well. He does throw some high-risk maneuvers, which can cost him position. I don't like it, and they seem like needless maneuvers that have very limited gain. He is dangerous off his back. He's very aggressive from that position, but again, I don't want to see him on his back against Edson Barboza at all, because Barboza, that's not a position you want to give Barboza willingly, so I don't think he's going to be able to take Ferguson down on his own. Look to see, Ferguson could look to try and change the pace and wrestle. Watch for that Darce choke if he gets the opportunity. He's got very long arms and likes to lock it up. I think Tony Ferguson keeps moving forward. He stunts the offensive output of Edson Barboza. He starts to slow him down, as Barboza is known for having a little bit of an endurance issue in longer, more, taxing fights. I think Ferguson either wears him down and outworks him or hurts him early and goes for a submission. Either way, my prediction is Tony Ferguson to defeat Edson Barboza. I'll take Ferguson by submission. We move now to the main event of the evening, and oh boy, is this going to be a good fight, and another very difficult fight to predict, as most of the fights I've talked about in the show have been. We are in the UFC's featherweight division, if I didn't already mention that. As the former lightweight champion, Frankie the Answer Edgar, 19-4-1. I believe he's ranked 2nd or 3rd. I don't have it in front of me right now. Taking on Chad Money Mendez, two-time former title challenger with a record of 17 wins and 3 losses. Technically 3-time if you want to count that interim title belt against Conor McGregor. Now, this is a massive fight for both men. Knowing what's happening the next night on Saturday night, the winner could easily be granted the next title shot, especially if Jose Aldo retains his title. They are already a combined 0-3 against Aldo. Both guys have fought competitive matchups with the champion, but ultimately came up short. Mendes, though, is coming off a loss to Conor McGregor, in which he took on short notice. He was also injured, apparently, and that really cost him and kept him out of this, the title picture for now. He did destroy Ricardo Lamas, and he has knockouts in 5 of his last 6 victories, which is impressive for a guy who is known for his grappling and grinding-based decisions. For Edgar, he had a big stoppage win of Cub Swanson late in that matchup. He dominated Uriah Faber, and he is 4-0 at featherweight since debuting with that loss to Jose Aldo when he fought for the title. Physically, same height. Frankie Edgar actually has a 2-inch longer reach, which I've been waiting for years to say. It feels like Mendes is the younger man by 4 years. Now, both guys come from NCAA Division I wrestling backgrounds. Edgar has upped his wrestling since moving to featherweight. We saw him take Jose Aldo down twice, and he's landed 19 takedowns in his 5 UFC fights. He landed 5 against Uriah Faber, 7 against Cub Swanson, where he overwhelmed him and eventually stopped him on the mat and was damn impressive. For Mendes, his overall numbers, he outlands Edgar in overall takedowns basically 2-1 in fights. He landed 4 takedowns against Conor McGregor and really controlled him until the fight ended. He landed 1 against Jose Aldo. Against some other pretty good wrestlers in Nick Lentz and Clay Guida, he landed a combined 10 takedowns. The big number, though, for Mendes is that he's never been taken down. He's 100% takedown defense. He's able to dictate where the fight takes place compared to Edgar, who has been taken down multiple times. 68% takedown defense. Henderson took him down once or twice. Gray Maynard took him down 3 times the last time they fought and had a lot of success. Actually, the second time they fought. The first title defense that ended in a draw. Maynard had some success taking him down. The way I look at the wrestling, either Mendes scores takedowns and has success there, or it's an ultimate stalemate and is decided on the feet. For Edgar, on the feet, it's his pace, his movement, and his volume boxing and striking. But keep in mind here, he only averages 0.8 more strikes landed per minute more than Chad Mendes. Now, those numbers are inflated a little bit by Mendes using top control and landing strikes from those positions, especially earlier in his career, or landing those undefended barrages after he hurts an opponent. But nonetheless, Edgar doesn't have these massive 5-point-something strikes landed per minute numbers. Mendes, I think he certainly has the advantage in power. He hits exceptionally hard, and he's really developed his striking in recent fights. Not as varied as Edgar, but I still think he does a very effective job. I think we're going to see Mendes have a lot of success. Looking at this, Mendes has his back's against the wall. He's got 2 losses to Aldo, the loss to Conor McGregor. He was dominating McGregor, but lost that matchup. If he loses this fight, it really knocks him out of the title picture for a little bit. I think Chad Mendes is a better version of Gray Maynard. And if you understand where I'm going with this, he has better power, better striking, better wrestling, better cardio, and he is quicker. For Edgar, the advantages that made him so good at lightweight, they don't exist or aren't nearly as significant fighting elite featherweights like Jose Aldo, like Chad Mendes. They aren't nearly as magnified, and that's going to show up here. I think we're going to see a back-and-forth fight. I think Mendes is going to have surprising success with his wrestling. I think he's going to do damage with his power. Frankie Edgar gets hurt in every single one of his fights, and I think Mendes is the type of guy who can hurt him and put him away because he is aggressive. Aldo kind of hurt him, but seems like he's still willing to stand back and point fight. I think Mendes cuts off the cage. I think at some point he clips Frankie Edgar. He hurts him. He has success with his wrestling. He keeps coming forward. And my prediction is Chad Mendes in a bit of an upset to defeat Frankie Edgar by TKO. So those are my 8 main card predictions for the combined UFC Fight Night 80 and Ultimate Fighter 22 finale, which will take place on Thursday, December 10th and Friday, December 11th. I'll do my own show for UFC 194 all by its lonesome. We've got a ton of fights coming up. The bet packs will be hopefully pouring a lot of money as there's a ton of good fights, difficult fights to predict, but fighters that I have a lot of familiarity with. Again, I'm not predicting the tough fights. I'm sure my prediction panel, those guys will touch upon the tough fights, so please check them out. Either way, it's a ton of action. Please have patience with me as I will try and get everything up as quickly as possible. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Buy the bet packs. It's that time of year. It'd be great to cash in right before Christmas with some big returns. And I got to go because I got prelim fights to predict. So I'll talk to you guys later.